My name is Maya Hollis. I'm 28 years old. For 3 years, I thought I was in a great relationship. For the last year and a half of that, we lived together. We signed a lease, split the bills, bought a couch together, talked about our future over takeout on Friday nights. From the outside, it probably looked solid, comfortable, grown up. But from the inside, it was like living in a house where the foundation was quietly rotting, and I was the only one worried about the cracks. It didn't happen overnight. These things never do. When I first started dating Victor, he was charming, attentive, the kind of guy who would send good morning texts and actually remember what you said about your day. He laughed at my dumb jokes and asked about my job and made an effort with my friends. The first time he cooked for me, he made this grilled salmon and quinoa salad that was perfectly seasoned. And I remember thinking, okay, maybe this is what adults in real relationships do. Somewhere along the way, that guy disappeared. At first, it was little comments. An eye roll when I got excited about a project at work. A heavy sigh when I asked if he could take the trash out. A muttered, "You're overreacting," when I tried to explain why something hurt my feelings. I told myself it was stress, his job, the city, the economy, anything but him deciding I wasn't worth the effort anymore. But disrespect is like mold. Once it starts, it spreads into everything. He'd come home after work, drop his bag by the door, and flop onto the couch without saying hello. If I tried to talk about my day, he'd nod without looking up from his phone. If I asked him to help with groceries or dishes, he'd act like I'd asked him to build a house from scratch. And spending time together? Apparently that had become a chore. The breaking point, though, came 2 months ago. I'd planned a nice dinner. Nothing fancy, just grilled salmon and that quinoa salad he used to rave about. I worked a full day, fought rush hour traffic, stopped by the store, and came home to chop, season, and pan-sear in our tiny little kitchen, because I missed the version of us that sat at a table and talked instead of staring at separate screens. I lit a candle, poured 2 glasses of wine, set the table, tried to pretend we were still that couple. He walked in, took one look at the table, and made a face like he'd smelled something bad. "Ugh," he said, dropping his keys. "This again?" I swallowed. "You used to love this meal." "Yeah," he said, tossing his jacket over a chair. "When I was basic. My tastes have evolved." I stared at him. "Okay, what would you prefer?" He shrugged, already pulling out his phone. "I don't know. Figure it out. You're the one who insists on these lame dinner dates." Lame. Our dinners together were lame now. "If you don't want to eat together, just say so," I said quietly. "Whatever," he muttered. "I'll just order something." He sat on the couch and started scrolling, and I stood there in our little dining area, watching the candle flicker between us like it was trying to decide whether it wanted to keep burning. This had become our pattern. I'd try, he'd dismiss, I'd feel like an idiot for caring. Rinse and repeat. The thing he didn't know was that I'd already started making changes. A month before the salmon incident, I'd helped my friend Danny move into a new place. One of her friends, Caleb, was there, carrying boxes and cracking jokes, and after the heavy lifting, we all sat on the floor eating pizza and drinking cheap beer. The conversation flowed. People listened when others talked. They asked follow-up questions. They laughed with, not at. At one point, I caught myself mid-story, waiting for the eye roll, the sigh, the phone distraction that never came. Caleb was actually listening. So were Danny and the others. I realized my shoulders had dropped an inch, that my stomach wasn't in a knot, that I felt normal. Driving home that night, I walked into our apartment, stepped over Victor's shoes in the doorway, and found him sprawled on the couch. He glanced up for half a second. "Can you not walk so loud?" he said. "I'm trying to watch this." He didn't ask how the move went. Didn't ask how I was. Just turned the volume up. That was the moment I knew I was done. Not in a dramatic, "I'm leaving you tonight" way. More like that click you feel when a decision settles quietly into place. I looked at him, at the TV, at our half-dying plant in the corner, and thought, I'm not going to keep auditioning for the role of girlfriend in my own relationship. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw his stuff on the lawn. I didn't beg him to change. I decided to quietly rebuild my life without him. First step, I started looking for my own place. Nothing dramatic, just browsing listings on my lunch breaks, doing the math on deposits and moving costs. I created a new spreadsheet titled Exit Strategy, and that alone made me feel calmer. Second step, I stopped trying so hard. No more special dinners he'd mock. No more meticulously planned date nights he'd call boring. I matched his energy. He wanted roommates who barely interact? Fine, I could do that. I stopped chasing. stopped filling the silence, stopped bending myself into shapes to get a crumb of appreciation. Third step, I reconnected with my life outside of him. I started saying yes to Danny's game nights again. I joined a Sunday hiking group. I grabbed coffee with coworkers I'd been too busy to see. I built a version of myself that didn't orbit around whether Victor was in a good mood that day. He didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He was too busy curating his evolved lifestyle, which mostly consisted of overpriced bars, with his equally exhausting friend Brandon, and complaining about how settled his friends in relationships were. Then, last week, came the dishwasher conversation. The thing had been breaking down every 3 months for a year. Each time I'd called the landlord, waited for the repair guy, worked from home so I could let him in. This time, when it started flooding the kitchen again, I decided to do something wild. I asked Victor to handle it. "Hey," I said one morning as he was scrolling at the counter, "the dishwasher's broken again. Could you call the landlord this time? I've dealt with it the last 3." He didn't look up. "Why is this my problem?" "Because you live here too?" I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I don't have time for this," he snapped. "You deal with it." "Victor," I said, setting my mug down, "I'm asking you to make one phone call." He finally looked at me, eyes full of annoyance, like I'd interrupted something crucial. "God, you're so needy lately. What's your deal?" "My deal," I said slowly, "is that you treat me like an inconvenience." He rolled his eyes dramatically. "Oh my God, here we go. Poor little victim speech." "I'm serious," I said. "Your attitude toward me, toward us, it's disrespectful." He snorted. "Oh, fine. If you don't like it, find someone else." There it was. The ultimatum he thought was a power play. He genuinely believed I would never leave, that I was too invested, too comfortable, too weak to do anything but cling harder. I felt something inside me go very, very still. "I already did," I said. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I'd heard in months. He actually looked up from his phone. "Or what?" "I already did," I repeated. "You told me to find someone else. I'm moving out next week." His jaw dropped. "You're what? Is this a joke?" "No joke," I said. "I signed a lease last week. Movers come Saturday." His face went through so many stages I could have written a psychology paper on it. Confusion, disbelief, anger, panic. "You signed a lease without telling me?" he demanded. "You told me to find someone else," I reminded him. "I took your advice." That's not what I meant," he sputtered. "You can't just leave." "Watch me," I said. That finally got him off the couch. He stood up, suddenly very invested in this conversation. "What about rent? The bills," he snapped. "Our lease isn't up for 4 months." "Already handled," I said. "Danny's friend Caleb needs a place. He's taking over my half of the lease. The landlord approved the transfer yesterday." "Caleb?" he repeated. "That guy from the move?" "Yeah," I said. "He's great. You'll like him." The look on his face said otherwise. "You've been planning this," he said slowly. "For about 6 weeks," I answered. "What did you expect, Victor? You've treated me like garbage for months. Did you think I'd just take it forever?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "We're in a relationship," he finally choked out. "You can't just secretly plan to leave me." I felt oddly calm as I picked up my mug. "Funny," I said. "How now you remember we're in a relationship." The hours after our breakup conversation felt surreal, like I was moving underwater while Victor flailed loudly on the surface. For the first time in months, I wasn't anxious, wasn't tiptoeing, wasn't trying to calculate his mood before speaking. I was just done. And he didn't know how to handle it. He didn't apologize. He didn't reflect. He didn't say he'd been hurtful. Instead, he chose chaos. By the time I got home from work the next day, he had cycled through the entire emotional alphabet of entitlement. Anger, bargaining, denial, guilt-tripping, and then back to anger again. First, he left printed sticky notes on the fridge reading, "We should talk. You're overreacting. You're not thinking clearly." It was bizarre, like passive-aggressive art. Then came the texts, each more unhinged than the last. "Victor, I can't believe you blindsided me." "Me. You told me to find someone else." "Victor, I didn't mean it literally." "Me. Maybe you should be more specific next time." "Victor, you're throwing away 3 years." "Me. You threw them away when you stopped caring." "Victor, this is dramatic." "Me. So is sighing every time I speak." No self-awareness, not a drop. But the real storm hit once he remembered that I had found a replacement for my half of the lease. A male replacement. He tried to block the transfer, actually called the landlord and said he didn't approve of Caleb moving in. The landlord was unimpressed. "As long as someone qualified takes over the lease, you have no say." Caleb had better credit than either of us. Of course he was approved. When Victor found out, he paced the apartment like a furious crow. You seriously want some random guy living here, in our space? Our space becomes your space on Saturday, I reminded him. And Caleb isn't random. He's great. Responsible, quiet, clean. Victor scoffed. Oh, I'm sure he's thrilled to live in my apartment. Bet he loves the drama. He doesn't, I said. He just wants a place to sleep and store his tools. Tools? Victor repeated, eyes narrowing. He's bringing tools? He builds furniture in his free time, I said. Also fixes things. The dishwasher is broken. Ask him to fix it. Victor turned red. As moving day approached, his panic morphed into guilt-tripping. You're really throwing away 3 years for a bad month? He demanded. Victor, I said, folding another box of clothes. You've treated me like a burden for nearly a year. That's dramatic. I've just been stressed. You've been disrespectful. I'm not perfect. This isn't about perfection. It's about basic human decency. He stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Then he switched tactics. You're abandoning me, he whispered dramatically. No, I said. I'm leaving someone who never values me until I walk away. That one landed. He blinked hard. But instead of apologizing, he tried twisting reality. So Caleb is your new boyfriend? I almost laughed. Caleb is gay. His girlfriend Tessa is helping him move in. Oh, he muttered. But the idea that someone, any someone, was replacing me in the apartment drove him wild. And that's when the sabotage began. Moving day. Victor accidentally blocked the moving truck with his car. He stood outside in sweatpants with fake confusion. I can't find my keys, he said flatly. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I called Danny. Then I called 3 more friends with trucks. Within 30 minutes, 4 of my friends were hauling boxes through the back entrance like strategic ninjas. We didn't need the moving truck anymore. Victor stood there uselessly as we loaded everything. He kept pacing, muttering things under his breath, occasionally trying to engage me in another dramatic confrontation. You're a coward, he spat at one point. Real partners don't just run away. I stacked another box. Real partners don't treat each other like annoyances. I gave you the best years of my life. No, I said gently. You gave me the most dismissive years of yours. That shut him up. But my favorite moment came an hour later. Caleb arrived, with Tessa and a U-Haul. A lesbian couple in coordinated overalls walked up the sidewalk while Victor stood there, arms crossed, trying to radiate dominance. He failed. Caleb waved. Hey, ready to tag in once you're out? Victor clearly hated all of this. You're moving in here? He blurted at Caleb. Yep, Caleb smiled. Heard the dishwasher's a pain. I'll take a look later. Victor blinked. You what? Caleb shrugged. I fix stuff. It's fun. Tessa kissed his cheek. He built our entire coffee table by hand. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it again. Beautiful. The real chaos came when Caleb and Tessa went inside to measure the room. 10 minutes later, Caleb poked his head back out. Hey, Maya, he called. Your ex asked if you taught me how to fix appliances just to make him look bad. I stared. What? Tessa snorted. She's unraveling. Oh, yeah, Caleb whispered. She's in full meltdown mode. Speak of the devil. Victor emerged from the hallway red-faced and sweaty. This is messed up, he said. You're leaving me with them? With people who respect me, yes. It's weird, he hissed. You moving in a lesbian couple. What exactly is weird about it? I asked. He stammered. Just weird. You told me to find someone else, I reminded him. Consider it done. He glared at me. I didn't mean it like that. Then you should have been clearer. His voice cracked in frustration. You're supposed to fight for me. Victor, I said softly. I fought for us, while you fought to make me smaller. And for the first time, he had nothing to say. By the time we loaded the last box into Danny's truck, Victor had retreated to the hallway like a sulking teenager. He emerged one last time as I picked up my bag. Maya, wait, he said. This is stupid. Just stay. We can fix this. I turned to him, really looked at him. Messy hair, red eyes, hands shaking slightly from indignation rather than heartbreak. Victor, I said, you don't even like me. That's not true. When was the last time you said something kind to me, or about me, or even looked at me without annoyance? His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Nothing came out. Exactly, I said. He sagged. You can't put me on the spot like that. I'm not. I'm just holding you to your own words. I'm leaving like you told me to. I walked out before he could respond. He didn't follow. 2 hours later, the text started. Victor, the dishwasher is leaking. Victor, Caleb's music is too loud. Victor, why isn't the Netflix working? Victor, this is your fault. I ignored all of them. Caleb texted me instead. Caleb. She knocked and asked me to fix the dishwasher. Took 5 minutes. Caleb. She thinks you taught me repairs to make her look bad. Me. What? Caleb. It's wild. My favorite message came later that night. Caleb, her. Is she coming back? Tessa. Girl, she escaped. I laughed until my ribs hurt. Then I went to bed in my new studio apartment, the air smelling faintly of paint and possibility, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Light. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for my entire life to feel different. Not perfect, not magically healed, but lighter, like someone had finally cut loose the weights tied around my chest. I woke up in my tiny studio apartment and felt peace instead of dread. I cooked salmon without waiting for someone to mock it. I watched documentaries without being called boring. I existed without apologizing for it. Meanwhile, Victor was not doing well. I wasn't checking in, but word travels fast when someone spirals loudly enough. Mutual friends told me he'd tried to spin the breakup as me, abandoning him without warning, conveniently forgetting that he'd told me to find someone else and then acted shocked when I did. Others heard him claim I'd been having an emotional affair with Caleb, until someone reminded him Caleb was gay and very publicly in a 7-year relationship. His narrative was falling apart. Mine, for the first time in months, made perfect sense. But the real twist was still coming. And it started at the farmer's market. My new boyfriend's name is Adrian. Yeah, I know, new boyfriend already. But truthfully, it didn't feel sudden. We'd been in the same hiking group since late spring. At first, he was just the soft-spoken guy who carried extra water bottles and could identify bird calls. Then we became friends who stayed late after group hikes, talking about books and cooking and the weird comfort of wandering through nature with people who didn't drain you. He'd been in a relationship like mine, one where trying was seen as weakness, one where affection felt like a one-way donation box. We understood each other before we ever touched each other. When I moved out, we hung out more. Coffee runs, evening walks, weekend hikes. It wasn't flirty, just warm and steady, the kind of connection that grows because it has room to. Then, one night, he walked me up to my new apartment, paused at the door, and said, I like who you are when you're not navigating someone else's anger. I don't know why that sentence hit as hard as it did. Maybe because no one had ever said something like that to me. Maybe because I finally felt seen in a way that wasn't transactional. We kissed, and none of it felt rushed or needy or performative. It just felt right. A week later, we were officially dating. So there we were, 2 weeks post-breakup, strolling through the farmer's market, laughing about how he burned every pancake he's ever tried to make when I heard, Maya? I froze. I knew that voice. The tone, a mix of disbelief, indignation, and insecurity, was unmistakable. Victor. He was standing there with his best friend Brandon, who looked like he'd rather sink into the earth than witness the situation unfolding. Victor's eyes darted from me to Adrian, then down to our intertwined hands. You could practically hear his brain glitching. So you're together? He finally managed. I took a breath. Hi, Victor. Yes, this is Adrian. Adrian extended a polite hand. Nice to meet you. Victor didn't take it. He just stared, torn between fury and shock. How long? He demanded. Sorry? Adrian asked, genuinely confused. Victor looked at me, voice cracking. How long have you been seeing him? I blinked. Officially? About a week. A week, he repeated, doing the math out loud. You moved out 2 weeks ago. Yes, I said. So you're already with someone else? His voice shook between anger and wounded pride. Adrian looked at me. This is your ex, right? The one who said your dinners were lame? Victor's jaw snapped shut. I never said... I cut in gently. You did, Victor. Multiple times. Adrian smiled apologetically. For what it's worth, her cooking is amazing. I felt warmth bloom in my chest. Victor stared at us, color rising in his cheeks. So what? He snapped. He's your rebound? Adrian actually laughed, soft and calm. Rebound? No. I'm the guy who treats her the way she should have been treated all along. Victor's nostrils flared. This is messed up, Maya. You planned this, all of it. I exhaled slowly. Victor, I planned to leave someone who spent a year treating me like an inconvenience. Everything else happened because I stopped shrinking to fit your comfort. Brandon suddenly grabbed Victor's arm. Dude, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. Victor shook him off. No, she needs to hear this. But I'd heard enough for 3 years. We're done, Victor, I said softly. You told me to find someone else. I did. Adrian squeezed my hand. Victor looked between us. My relaxed shoulders, Adrian's steady presence, our fingers intertwined, and something ugly flashed across his face. You could have fought for me, he said quietly. I met his eyes. I did, you just never noticed. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and for the first time I saw not anger, but recognition. The kind that hits too late. Brandon tugged him away. Come on, man, let's go. Victor didn't fight him this time. He just stared at me one last time, as if trying to understand how someone he took for granted had slipped from his grip so easily. Then he turned away. And I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel petty satisfaction. I felt freedom. Pure, clean freedom. Later that night, Adrian sent me a photo he'd snapped without me noticing. Me laughing, head tilted back, a bunch of carrots in my hand. My eyes looked bright, my shoulders unburdened, my smile unforced. He captioned it, "My boring girlfriend buying exciting vegetables." I almost cried. I showed the picture to Danny and she stared at it for a long moment. "You look like yourself again," she said, "like the version of you that used to show up before you spent 2 years apologizing for existing." For the first time in a long while, I believed her. Victor's "find someone else" wasn't the threat he meant it to be. It was the permission I didn't know I needed, and I took it.